The arrows came out of the mist, silent, glowing green, already humming with poison. He didn't think. He didn't hesitate. He turned his back and stepped in front of Child. The first arrow hit between his shoulders. The second burned through his side. The third nearly dropped him to his knees. The alien girl screamed his name in a language he barely understood. He smiled through the pain and kept moving. They said the poison stopped hearts in seconds. They said no human survived it. But when he finally fell, he didn't die. He slept. And when his eyes opened again, the sky was unfamiliar, the air tasted different, and 50 years were gone. Armored figures knelt around his bed. A crown glimmered in the torchlight. And the small alien child he once carried through blood and fire stood before him now, grown, powerful, and called Queen. The mist rolled over the jagged cliffs like a living thing, curling around rocks and roots, swallowing sound. The alien settlement lay below, half buried in fog, its spires sharp as talons against the dim light of a dying sun. Kale, human, soldier, protector, watched from above, eyes fixed on the small, blue-skinned child scrambling along the ledge. She was barely more than 10 cycles old, her limbs thin, her armor patched and worn, but she moved with a grace that betrayed every ounce of fear she had endured. Behind her, a pack of raiders advanced, arrows ready, faces twisted in hunger and cruelty. They had chosen this day for her blood. Kale gripped his rifle, then loosened his hold. No, that wasn't enough. The child didn't need a marksman. She needed a shield, and he would be that shield, even if it killed him. The first arrow struck his back before he could even draw a breath, slicing through his jacket and embedding in muscle. Heat flared up his spine, fire crawling through veins. He winced but didn't cry out. The girl froze for a heartbeat, eyes wide and luminous, and he waved her forward. Keep moving, he rasped, voice hoarse. I've got you. Another arrow followed. He turned his body, catching it in his shoulder, the green poison burning like ice in the marrow. Pain exploded, sharp enough to make his knees buckle. Still, he took another step in front of her. The raiders hesitated, confusion flickering in their eyes as they watched the human take arrow after arrow without retreating. Run, he shouted, and she obeyed, small feet pounding the rocks, her cloak snapping in the wind. Kale felt another arrow pierce him, and another, until the world was a haze of agony, mist, and the screams of a child he had sworn to protect. He stumbled. His vision fractured. Colors bled together, green, blue, red, until they formed nothing but a tunnel, leading straight into darkness. He remembered one last thought before the world went black. She will live. When Kale awoke, the air smelled different, sharp, metallic, but not like the damp caves he had crawled through so many years ago. His muscles screamed in protest, but more than that, time itself seemed foreign. His eyes opened to a vaulted chamber, walls lined with crystalline panels and light that seemed to hum with energy. The bed beneath him was soft, warm, and impossible. Figures knelt around him. Armor glinted under the light, intricate and unfamiliar. They whispered in a language that tugged at the corners of his memory, and yet some small part of him understood. Above them, suspended in air, hung a crown, not massive, not imposing, but perfect, radiating authority without threat. Kale tried to move. Pain lanced through him, bones, muscles, the very fibers of him. But the motion of his body felt sluggish, strange, unpracticed. He realized he had slept longer than any human should, longer than any human could. And then she entered. The child. Not a child anymore. Her skin still bore the same blue hue, but it had deepened to a rich sapphire. Her eyes were larger, fiercer, but still bright with the spark he remembered. Her cloak had grown into a regal mantle, embroidered with golden sigils of a people he barely recognized. She moved with a grace that commanded the room, her presence bending the very air into silence. "Kale," she said. Her voice, low, melodic but strong, made him flinch. It carried weight, history, authority. "Queen." The word rolled in his head like thunder against cliffs. "Your child," Kale tried to croak, but his throat was raw, foreign. The sentence caught in his lungs. He forced it out anyway. She survived? She smiled. Not the playful smile of a girl, but the measured, knowing smile of someone who had endured and won. Because of you, she said. Because of the choices you made. Kale remembered the arrows, the poison, the bitter taste of metal in his mouth, the screams of raiders falling behind him as he took the brunt of their attack. He remembered the weight of her small body pressed into his chest, her tiny hands clutching him as if he were the world itself. He had been ready to die, and yet here he was, alive. 50 cycles later, a relic of a past life he barely recognized. You've grown, he muttered, words strange in his mouth. I have, she replied softly, yet her gaze pierced him. And so have the world you saved. Kale's vision blurred. His body ached with years he had never lived. Memory flickered in fragments. Raiders' screams, green-tipped arrows, the ache in his spine, her small voice whispering, go. Live. The room was silent now. He could hear nothing but the hum of strange machinery, the faint echo of voices speaking in languages he could not name, and her presence, commanding, luminous, unyielding. Why am I here? He whispered, voice hoarse. What happened to everyone? She stepped closer, each movement deliberate, regal, yet undeniably human in its nuance. Time moved differently for you, she said. For 50 years, the world changed. You were preserved, Kale, to see what you helped create. And now, her eyes met his unwavering. Now you must decide what role you will play in it. Kale tried to rise, to find some purpose in this alien, gleaming chamber, but his body refused. His mind raced, caught between disbelief, awe, and something darker, fear. Not of her, not of the world, but of himself. Of what he could become when the past and present collided. And then he remembered the arrows, the poison, the choice he had made to step in front of her. And he realized, with a shiver that ran through every fiber of his being, that choice had never ended. It had only begun. Kale's fingers brushed against the edge of the bed, searching for balance, for some anchor in this impossible reality. But the chamber seemed to hum with life of its own. The walls weren't stone. They were crystalline, shimmering, alive. Lights pulsed along their facets, soft at first, then in patterns that seemed to respond to his heartbeat. He tried to speak again, but only a raspy whisper escaped. 50 years, why? The queen, the girl he had protected, now stood at the center of the chamber. Her mantle shifted slightly as she moved, each step measured, each gesture deliberate. She radiated authority, yes, but there was warmth too. A memory of the child who had clung to him in the storm of arrows flashed in her sapphire eyes. She lifted a hand, fingers curling as if to trace the path of the arrows he had once shielded her from. You are awake, she said softly. I feared you would not be. Kale tried to laugh, but it sounded hollow. His mind raced. 50 years gone. The world he knew erased. Friends, comrades, battles. All dust in the winds of time. And yet, she had lived, grown, and somehow thrived. How did this happen? He managed, voice trembling. I should be dead. You were not meant to die, she replied, stepping closer, her presence filling the chamber. The poison you took was ancient, engineered for one purpose, to remove obstacles. But you... Her lips curved slightly, with something almost like reverence. You became an exception, preserved, carried across time, so that when the moment came, you could witness what we have built. Kale's vision blurred. Preserved? Across time? His mind fought to process it. Every muscle screamed in protest at his awakening. Every memory burned like acid behind his eyes. He remembered the arrows piercing his back, the searing poison spreading through his veins, the ache of betrayal and fear in the alien settlement, and her small hand clutching his shirt. You protected me, she said, her voice steady, carrying weight like the clang of a hammer. While you suffered, the world moved forward. I survived because of you, and I rose because of what you gave me. Time, safety, and choice. Kale struggled to sit up. His body protested with every movement. I sacrificed everything for you, he rasped. And you became... Words failed him. She wasn't the child anymore. She wasn't even merely a ruler. She was an embodiment of everything he had fought for, everything he had defended against. She was a force of will, radiant and unyielding. Yes, she said, I am what we become. But this world, it is fragile. And there are those who would see it crumble, just as it once nearly did. Her eyes narrowed. And now, Kale, you must choose. Will you stand as a protector again, not for me as a child, but for what I have built? Or will you fade back into the shadows of the past? Kale's mind raced. The poison had left his body preserved. Yes, but it had also left him weak, distant from the flow of time. He felt alien in his own flesh. 50 years of wars, revolutions, and changes had passed without him. Could he even contribute? Could he still protect, still fight? Tommy whispered. 50 years, everything I knew. You kept the child alive, she said, her voice a knife of clarity and warmth. That is why you are here. Not to reclaim the past, but to safeguard the future. He took a shaky breath, eyes roaming the chamber. Soldiers moved silently, shadows shifting around crystalline pillars. Kale realized this world had adapted, had survived in ways he could not have imagined. Machines hummed with unfamiliar energy. The architecture was alive, responsive, almost organic. And in the center, she, the girl, the queen, stood as both symbol and reality of everything he had fought to protect. His voice caught, thick with emotion. I don't even know who I am anymore. You are still the man who chose sacrifice over self, she said. Her gaze softened, reflecting the faint glow of the crystalline walls. That has not changed. It is who you are, and it is why you were preserved. Memories surged, pain, adrenaline. The moment the arrows pierced him, the heat of poison crawling through his veins, her tiny hand gripping his chest. All those choices, all those moments converged in this instant. And for the first time, he understood. He hadn't survived just to live. He had survived to see the child grow, to see the consequences of his protection, and to guide her through the challenges yet to come. Then, I will stand, he whispered, voice gaining strength. Not for the child you were, but for the queen you've become. For the world she commands. For what we fought for. A faint smile curved her lips, regal yet human, soft yet resolute. Good, she said, because there are forces gathering. Ones that will test everything we have built. And I will not, face them alone. Kale nodded, still weak, still foreign in his own body. But resolve settled in his chest. 50 years of sleep, 50 years of absence, none of it mattered. What mattered was here, now, in the presence of the one life he had protected, the one soul he had saved. She extended her hand toward him, not as a child seeking comfort, but as a queen seeking alliance. Kale took it, feeling a spark of familiarity, a tether to the past, and a bridge to the future. Outside, the sun rose higher, casting fractured light through the crystalline spires, painting the chamber in gold and sapphire. 50 years had passed, but the bond between them, protector and the protected, remained unbroken. And in that silence, broken only by the hum of the living architecture, Kale understood. This was only the beginning. The arrows had come and gone. The poison had burned and preserved. And now, in the hands of the queen he had saved, a new world awaited, full of peril, promise, and the weight of choices yet to be made. The city beyond the crystalline walls was unrecognizable to Kale. Towers spiraled into the clouds, not built from stone or steel, but from living materials that shimmered in sapphire and emerald light. Bridges arched like frozen waves, carrying traffic that moved without wheels, without sound, yet perfectly synchronized. Energy pulsed beneath the streets, powering systems he could not name. And everywhere, citizens moved with grace and precision. Alien, human, hybrid, yet all carried a subtle air of reverence, as if aware of the queen's gaze from above. Kale followed her through vast halls, each step echoing against walls that seemed to respond to her presence. The child he had protected was now a ruler in full command. Her authority was not enforced through fear alone. It radiated naturally, a force both gentle and unyielding. He realized that the bonds forged in survival, in blood and choice, had shaped her, and in turn, she shaped the world around her. "Kale," she said, voice steady and commanding, "there are whispers in the outer reaches. Raiders, remnants of the factions that once threatened us, are reorganizing. They believe the protector is gone, that the human who saved me no longer exists. We must show them they are wrong." He nodded, still unsure of his body, still learning to trust strength that had lain dormant for half a century. "What do you want me to do?" "Stand with me," she replied, a faint smile touching her lips. "Not as a soldier, not as a relic, but as the living proof that sacrifice shapes destiny. They need to see that humanity, that we endure." Kale's mind raced. The thought of stepping into battle again, after 50 cycles, made muscles ache and heart pound. Yet, in her gaze, he saw the reflection of the small child he had shielded, the vulnerable creature who had clutched him as if he were the world itself. That child had grown into this queen, the strongest presence he had ever known, and he would not let her fight alone. They emerged onto a balcony overlooking the central plaza, where thousands had gathered. Some hailed from distant planets, others from colonies he barely recognized, all unified under the banner of a reign. Kale felt the weight of their expectation settle over him, an invisible mantle as heavy as any armor he had worn. "Do you remember the first day we met?" she asked, almost softly, yet with unmistakable authority. "When you took those arrows for me?" He winced, recalling the searing pain, the green venom spreading through his veins, the way the world had narrowed to her frightened eyes. I remember," he said, voice raw. "I thought I was dying. I thought—" "You were," she interrupted gently. "But you didn't. And because of that, we survived. Because of that, I survived." Her gaze swept across the crowd, piercing and commanding. "And now, because of you, we rise again." The plaza erupted with a roar that reverberated against the crystalline spires. Kale realized that the people were not cheering for him, not directly. They were cheering for the symbol he represented, the living proof of devotion, loyalty, and human resilience. And in that roar, he felt a strange clarity settle over him. 50 years were gone, but purpose had never abandoned him. Suddenly, a sharp vibration ran through the balcony. Kale turned, sensing danger before he saw it. From the far edges of the city, shadows twisted unnaturally. Ships, small, agile, and heavily armed, descended from the clouds. Raiders, not a ragged force, but disciplined, precise, moving as if they had been trained to strike at the heart of the city in his absence. "They've come," Kale muttered. The queen's eyes narrowed, sapphire glowing faintly under the golden light. "Yes," she said, "and now you will see the difference 50 years of survival makes." The first volley of energy lances streaked across the plaza. Citizens scattered with disciplined efficiency, shields raising instantly, barriers forming in midair. Kale felt the old rush return, the instinctive pull of combat, the rhythm of evasion and counterattack. The blade of memory flashed in his mind, the arrows, the poison, the desperation to protect. Only now it was not one child. It was an entire city, an entire civilization. "Take the left flank," she commanded, voice carrying authority over the chaos. "Cover the evacuation corridors. I will lead the defense." Kale obeyed, moving with muscles stiff but instincts unbroken. His eyes tracked incoming fire, every motion calculated, every step deliberate. He was not the soldier he had been 50 years ago. He was something more. Time had forged patience, perspective, and now the burden of history guided him. He intercepted a squad of raiders attempting to breach a barrier. Reflexively, he disarmed, blocked, and incapacitated with precision. Each movement carried the weight of memory, the clarity of survival. He wasn't merely fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for the child queen who had grown from the arms he had once protected. And then he saw her, Above the plaza, staff in hand, commanding energy flows, shields bending at her will. Her presence was unstoppable. Her sapphire eyes met his across the battlefield, and for a heartbeat, he saw that child again, terrified and clinging to him in the storm of arrows. Then she was gone, a queen in full command, directing every defense, every strike, every life-saving maneuver with precision he could scarcely comprehend. Cale's chest tightened. He realized the paradox. He had spent 50 years asleep, preserved by the poison he had thought would kill him. And in that time, the child he saved had become everything, the force, the mind, and the heart of a civilization. Yet here he was, alive, needed, and able to act. The raiders faltered as their precision met the human and queen together, a living testament to survival, sacrifice, and the unbroken chain of protection. Cale moved through the battlefield, side by side with soldiers of multiple species, every strike measured, every motion reflecting 50 years of absence and the weight of loyalty. And in that moment, Cale understood a truth he had never fully grasped when he first fell under the arrows. Protection was not about strength alone. It was about presence, about choice, about being there when the future depended on it. The queen's voice cut through the chaos again, commanding and clear. Hold. Do not let them see fear. They will break if we do not. Cale felt it then. The surge of purpose, the revival of everything he had fought for and believed in. 50 years had passed, but the fight, the bond, and the courage had never left him. And now, at last, he was ready. The battlefield trembled under the weight of the raiders' assault. Energy lances cut through the air, colliding with shimmering shields that flared and bent but held. Cale moved through it like a shadow, instinct and memory guiding him, muscles remembering motions 50 years of sleep had tried to erase. Every strike, every block, carried the force of his sacrifice, the echo of the arrows he had once taken for her, the child who had now become a queen. From above, she directed the defense with a calm ferocity that seemed impossible. Her sapphire eyes glimmered like twin stars, scanning the chaos, weaving strategy with an elegance honed over decades. Citizens and soldiers alike moved as one, their coordination a living testament to her leadership. Yet Cale noticed the subtle human imperfections, the smallest hesitation, the tiniest doubt, and he acted to fill them, placing himself where danger was greatest, absorbing strikes meant for others. A massive shadow detached itself from the sky. Raider dreadnoughts, vessels bristling with weapons, descending like falling mountains. Cale froze for only a heartbeat, then surged forward. His hands, though stiff, moved with precision, manipulating energy conduits, redirecting defensive fields. Sparks and plasma flared around him. A lance streaked toward a group of civilians, and instinct guided his body. He threw himself forward, channeling the energy through a shield, redirecting its path harmlessly into the ground. Pain seared through his chest, but he gritted his teeth and pressed on. The queen landed beside him, her presence both comforting and commanding. "Cale, the core must be protected," she said, voice low but resolute. "If they breach the main energy nexus, the city falls." He nodded, determination igniting within him. "Lead the counterattack. I'll cover the core." They split, moving in perfect synchrony despite decades of absence. Cale directed soldiers, alien and human alike, orchestrating a defensive formation around the pulsing nexus. Raiders swarmed, relentless, but Cale's presence was a shield in itself. His years of absence, of survival, distilled into precision, timing, and unwavering courage. An explosion rocked the chamber, throwing him against crystalline walls. Pain, exhaustion, and disbelief assaulted him simultaneously, yet he rose again, ignoring the trembling in his limbs. Through the chaos, he saw her, the girl he had carried, the queen he had preserved. Her voice echoed through the plaza, cutting commands into the storm of violence, a living beacon. Cale realized then what the poison had truly done. It hadn't preserved his body merely. It had preserved his purpose. 50 years of absence, yet his choices, his instinct had never faded. Every arrow taken, every life defended, every agonizing decision had led to this moment. And now, he understood survival wasn't enough. The bond he had formed with her, the trust, the devotion, the unyielding commitment, was the bridge between their past and the salvation of this new world. The raiders faltered, confusion creeping into their ranks. They had expected a weakened city, a broken queen, a human relic too old to matter. Instead, they faced the perfect storm, a ruler tempered by time and a protector reborn from sacrifice. Kale moved through the chaos like a living memory of courage, deflecting attacks, rerouting power, and saving those moments of hesitation from becoming catastrophe. Finally, they breached the central plaza. Raiders swarmed the core, massive